Hey everyone, I'm Liz Fairy, and today I'm going to show you how I made these cute crochet unicorn dolls. In part 1 we made the head and the body. Now let's continue where we left off and make the legs, the mane and tail, and embroider the eyes. I'll start with the legs. These are all made the same way, so I'll need to make 4 of these. I'm going to start with another double magic circle, this time just using my gold embroidery thread. I'm using 4 strands at once to mimic the weight of my other yarn. So I'll pull up a loop, chain 1 for the first stitch, and then single crochet 5 more times into my circle, and then I'll close my circle. In the next row, I'm going to single crochet into each stitch into just the back loops. This is going to create a ridge at the bottom of the hoof. At the end of this row, I'll change colors to white. With my white yarn, I'll single crochet 1 row, again into the back loops only, to create another ridge at the top of the hoof. And now for the rest of the leg, I'll single crochet into both loops again like normal. I'll single crochet for 3 more rows. Alright, I'm going to do 1 more row. In this final row, I'm going to fold the leg in half, and I'll work the next row through both sides at the same time. So I'll work the first stitch of the row into the first and 6th stitch of the previous row at the same time. Then the second stitch of the next row, I'll work into the 2nd and the 5th stitch of the previous row at the same time. And the last stitch, I'll work into the 3rd and the 4th stitch of the previous row at the same time. So I'll insert my hook into the first and last stitch of the previous row, pull up a loop through both stitches, and single crochet. Then insert the hook into the second and fifth stitches, and single crochet, and then for the last stitch, I'll insert the hook into the third and fourth stitch, and single crochet. Then chain 1 to end the work, and cut off a long tail to sew the leg to the body. Now I just need to make 3 more of these. Alright, I finished making the head and the body and 4 legs. Next I need to pin all these pieces together and sew them all together using the tails. Now that I've finished sewing all the parts of the body together, I just need to add the finishing touches like the eyes, the mane, and the tail. I'll start with the mane and the tail. As you may remember from part 1, I'm using a color gradient to make the mane and tail of my doll. Now in the basic pattern, I used the classic rainbow colors, red, orange, yellow, green, blue, and purple. If you want to see how I did that style of mane, you can check out my rainbow unicorn mane tutorial, since it's pretty much exactly the same. For this video though, I wanted to do something different, so I'm using the same technique for the mane, but switching out the colors. I have a black yarn, a dark violet yarn, a charcoal gray yarn, a lavender gray yarn, a grapey purple yarn, a magenta yarn, a watermelon pink yarn, and a bubblegum pink yarn. I have 2 more colors than I used for the rainbow technique, so that just means that I'll be leaving 2 of the colors out for my foundation chain, and I'll add those colors back in when I make the actual hair. I'll leave out the dark violet and the grapey purple yarn for now. So using the remaining colors, I need to create a row of single crochets from the top of the head down the center of the back of the neck and shoulders. I'm going to create 2 stitches of each color. I'll start with my black yarn. So pull up a loop at the top of the head in between the ears, and I'm going to make sure to leave a long tail at the beginning to count as the first strand of hair. Then I'll chain 1, and that's going to count as the first stitch. Next, I'll continue to single crochet in a straight line down the center of the doll's head and neck. So I'm going to single crochet 1 more using black, and I'll make sure to work the stitch on top of the tail that I left out at the beginning to fasten that tail in place, since the tails of each color change will count as a strand of hair. So I want to make sure to anchor both yarn tails of every color. I'll leave the second stitch open and change colors to my next color, which is charcoal. Then I'll single crochet 2 using charcoal, and I'll make sure not to forget to work my stitch over the tail of black to anchor that tail in place, and to work the second stitch of charcoal over the first charcoal tail to anchor that tail in as well. I'll make sure to do that for every single color change. Now I'll leave the second stitch of charcoal open and change colors to lavender. Single crochet 2 using lavender, and change colors to magenta. Single crochet 2 using magenta and change colors to watermelon pink. Single crochet 2 using watermelon, change colors to bubblegum pink. And single crochet 2 using bubblegum. Then I'll chain 1 to fasten off the yarn and cut off a long tail. Now I'm going to make the hair. I'll cut 3 strands per stitch of the foundation that I just made. Since I have 12 stitches total in the foundation, that means I need 36 strands for the mane. For the rainbow mane, I just cut 3 strands of each color per stitch, but since I left 2 of the colors out for this one, I need to add them back in. To do this, I just cut 3 strands of the grape purple and worked the grape purple strands onto one of the lavender stitches, and for the dark purple I cut 6 strands and worked 3 onto one of the black stitches and 3 more onto one of the charcoal gray stitches. This means I only had to cut 3 each of the lavender, black, and charcoal yarns to make up for the extra colors. For every other color, I cut 6 strands each, 3 for each stitch. Next, I'm going to add the strands of hair to the foundation row. I'll add 1 strand around the front loop, 1 around the back loop, and 1 around the post of each stitch. I'll start from the bottom using the bubblegum pink yarn. First, fold the strand in half, creating 2 long tails and a loop in the middle. Then I'll pull up the loop around the back loop of the stitch. Now pull both tails through the loop, and pull on both tails to tighten the loop. And I'll repeat that, this time pulling up a loop around the front loop of the stitch, and I'll repeat that again, this time around the post of the stitch. Then I'll do the same thing in the next stitch. And then do the same for each color. To make the tail, I'll cut one strand of each color, slightly longer than the length I want the tail to be. Then I'll tie a long strand of the main body color yarn around all the tail strands at the middle of the strands. Also, I've laid them out in order because this gives a bit of a gradient effect to the tail. Next, I'll fold all the strands in half and then tie the white yarn around again to secure the knot. Now I'm going to thread both ends of the white yarn onto a yarn needle. I'll place the yarn needle in between the gaps between the stitches of the body, about where I want the tail to go at the back of the body. And then pull the needle out at the front of the body again through one of the gaps in between the stitches. Then I'll gently pull the yarn until the knot around the colorful tail strands as well as the tops of the tail strands are pulled inside the body of the doll. Next, being careful not to pull the strands inside any further, I'll sew in the white yarn ends through the inside of the body to more permanently attach the tail. I'll also sew through the tops of the colorful strands from the inside of the body to better secure the tail so that each strand can't be pulled out. Then I'll sew in the rest of the white strands. The rest of the steps for the mane and tail are optional, but I'm going to unravel the yarn. And if you wanted to take it even further, you could brush out and straighten the hair, but I'm not going to do that for this doll. You can see how I did that technique in more detail though in my rainbow unicorn mane tutorial. Here's what the doll looks like almost done. Now finally I need to embroider the eyes to finish the doll. First I've added a few pins to each side to mark about where I want to place the eyes. These pins are going to make it easier to shape the eyes and to make them more or less symmetrical. After fastening my thread to the doll, I'm first going to bring my needle out at the pin mark on one side of the eye. Then I'll put the needle through the other side of the eye and out the same spot on the opposite side on the other eye. Then I'll gently pull the thread until the thread is draped just under the pin marks. And now I'll do the same thing on the other side. Put the needle through the other side of the eye and out the same spot on the opposite side, and gently pull the thread to drape it just under the pins. Now I'll repeat that several times to thicken my line. Now that I've gone back and forth across both eyes several times, I'm going to fasten the yarn down by adding several stitches both around my lines and through the actual face of the doll. Once I finish stitching the line for the eyes, I'm going to add some stitches to look like eyelashes. This unicorn is pretty much done now, except for one obvious problem: I didn't show you how to make the horn. I made a separate video where I show you how to make 3 styles of horn, and you can decide which one you want to use for your project. I used a spiral-shaped horn for my unicorns. And if you want to be a bit extra, I've also made another video for feathery wings that you can add to your doll, if you want. All the links to those tutorials will be in the description below. And now my unicorn is done. I think these unicorns would make great stocking stuffers, or if you attached a loop in between the ears, they could be a cute ornament, especially the version with the wings, which is a tutorial I've wanted to make for ages. I also think this is a really versatile design, and with a few minor adjustments, you could make any number of animals using this pattern. But what do you guys think of these unicorns? What other type of cute animal dolls should I make next? Let me know in the comments. And as always, if you made a doll using this or any of my videos, I'd love to see your work. You can find my social media links in the description below, or tag me on Instagram at LizFairy. If you liked this video, you could press the like button or share it on social media, and if you'd really like to help out the channel, you can donate to my Patreon. You can get some pretty cool perks through Patreon, like seeing my videos early and ad-free. Find out more about that at patreon.com/fairyrings. You could also subscribe and click the bell icon so that you don't miss any of my future videos. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you all next time. Bye!